Right, grade 10 financial maths includes two formulae, the simple interest formula and the compound interest formula. And the lovely thing about this section is if you know the formulae, you're halfway there. All you need to do now is insert the correct information into the correct parts of the formula. First things first, if you decide that you need to buy a car, most people cannot afford to pay for the entire car up front, and you'll need to take out some sort of loan to be able to pay off monthly payments for this car. The scary thing is that the car is not yours until you've paid back every single monthly payment. And that's what is referred to as financing your car, when you take a loan for your car. Or you can also take a loan for things such as furniture or even relatively big appliances from shops like Game and Macro. Now, before you take the loan, you need to prove that you have some sort of money, and that is called the deposit. So this deposit is a percentage calculation calculated before you even take the loan. So that's a separate little calculation that we usually do first. For example, a 10% deposit means you're going to work out the 10% of the total cost of the car, and then what's left over. So that left over 90% is the amount that is going to be inserted into the simple interest formula. And then Now the simple interest formula looks like this, where A is your final amount, or also known as your accumulated amount, and P is your principal or initial amount. I is your interest rate per annum, and we've noted that you must divide this by 100 because it's always given as a percentage, but in order to put it into this formula, it must be a decimal, and to convert a percentage to a decimal, we usually divide by 100. Then N is the number of years over which you pay back the hire purchase agreement, or the number of years over which an investment is made if you're using the simple interest formula. Now the simple interest formula I'm going to refer to as SI in the questions to come. HP stands for hire purchase agreements, and they always use simple interest, like I said earlier. So example 1, calculate what 750 Rand will amount to if invested at a 6% simple interest for 3 years. First things first, write down the formula and let's put the relevant information into the relevant parts of the formula. The principal amount was 750 Rand. The 1 stays. The interest at 6%, 6 divided by 100 gives us 0.06. And then the number of years is 3. Plug that all into the formula, use your calculator, and voila, you've got 885 Rand. So 750 Rand grew. See how we multiplied 750 by this big bracket? So obviously your final answer will be bigger than your initial amount. Example 2. Musa purchases a car for 95,850 Rand using a hire purchase agreement. He puts down a 10% deposit. So this calculation is done up front before we even apply the simple interest formula. And he repays the balance at 10.5%. PA stands for per annum, so 10.5% for every year over which he pays it back, every month over 4.5 years. What is the total amount he has left to pay? So basically they're asking for you to just calculate the deposit, which is 10% of is a times sign in maths, of 95,850. You pop that into your calculator and you get 9,585. Now that is how much he pays up front, so we take that amount away from the total in order to realize the loan amount. So this is the leftover amount that is going to be put into the simple interest formula. Then, how much interest will he pay over 4.5 years? Well, let's work this thing out. We're first going to see how much he'll actually pay over the 4.5 years by taking our 86,000 Rand and using it as our principal amount. Our interest rate, 10,5 divided by 100 gives you 0,105. And then the number of years was 4.5. So this 86,000 grew because we multiplied it by a bracket. It grew to 127,000. So that's how much he's paying in total, right? So the interest paid is the difference between the two amounts, because you are paying a larger amount in total. Why is this thing larger than the original 86,000? Because they added interest, right? The convenience of paying only monthly amounts is you pay for that convenience in the form of interest. So the difference between the two amounts is the amount of interest that was actually paid, the extra amount of money paid back to the bank for the favor of loaning you that amount. And then last but not least, how much will he pay per month? Well, he needs to pay back a total of 127,000 Rand, and he needs to pay it back over 4.5 years worth of months. So let's work out how many months that is. 4.5 years times by 12 months in a year gives us 54 months. So now, if you have to take the total amount that needs to be paid back and divide it into 54 months, we get the monthly amount of 2,352 Rand and 32 cents. Remember, in financial maths, you've got to round off to 2 decimal places always, because of rands and okay. So compound interest, here we are. I'm sure you can remember that the difference between simple and compound interest is that n is now an exponent, which is wonderful because it means that the interest is calculated on the most recent amount of money left in the bank and not merely on the principal amount once off. A is your final amount, P is your principal or initial amount, and I is your interest rate, and N is your number of years. Memorize this formula and know that compound interest is the formula you use when you are asked about inflation. Do not use the simple interest formula for inflation. You will get it wrong. So example 3. If 120,000 Rand is invested at 9% per annum compounded annually, you need to calculate the accumulated amount. So we're looking for A in this formula. At the end of 12 years, we have a value for N, it's 12. We have a value for I, it's 9 over 100, which is 0,09. And our principal amount is indeed 120,000 Rand. So if you plug all that relevant information into the formula, pop out your calculator, voila, you see that 120,000 Rand grows to this big amount of 337,519 Rand and 77 cents. Now, if you need to calculate the total interest earned, you once again consider, by how much did 120,000 Rand grow in rands? We merely take the difference between the two. Your interest is your final amount. Subtract your initial amount from your final amount, and the difference is the interest earned. Note that you use rands in your final answer, but it's not essential to show rands every time you write, you show you're working out. Now, to practice these concepts, go and do exercise 12.1, page 266, number 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8. Remember to mark yourself because the answers are at the back of the textbook. Well done. Off you go.